I attended a funeral the other day. I know, not the greatest way to start, but it does get better, I promise. It was for the mother of someone I work with. I wanted to be there to support my coworker. I know a thing or two about losing a parent. So I did the sign-in thing. I did the small talk thing. I looked at the pictures and at my watch. Some more pictures and my watch. Pictures, what? You get the idea. I found a seat towards the back once the service started so I could make my quick escape when things were all said and done. We sang a few hymns, and then we settled in for the message from the family's pastor. Honestly, I got way more than I was expecting. The pastor read the entire obituary, but then he said something unexpected. He said, this is what's written, but I have learned that there's a whole lot more to discover when you read between the lines. He then proceeded to tell a series of stories of things he had learned from the family, and for each story he would hold up an object. For instance, the woman that we were remembering had had a rather funny mishap on an airplane. And so as he told the story, he held up a toy jet. When he was done, he gave the jet to one of the family members as a memento, a way to remember the woman. He did this for several stories. Some of them were funny, as were the objects. Others were more serious, heartwarming. It was extraordinary. It was a real legacy of love. I left and came home deep in thought. I couldn't stop thinking about my wife, Shelby, the mother of our children. What objects would represent her legacy? How would she be remembered when her day came? I didn't want to wait till she was gone to start recognizing and remembering those things. And so I thought long and hard, what would represent her legacy? Stone. It's smooth stone, I might add. Still remember when our Jacob brought this home from Vacation Bible School one summer. They had been teaching the kids about David and Goliath, and I distinctly remember when he came in the door, and the minute he laid eyes on his little brother, he said something to the effect of, "I smite thee, Goliath." And he reared back with that stone in his hand. I can tell you there are a few times in my married life when I've seen my wife move quite that fast. And she intercepted that stone long before it left his hand, and she promptly sent our little David wannabe to bed without dinner. Afterwards, she went up to talk to him, and he looked at her and said, "Mom, I never would have thrown the stone." No, he was going to wait and find a sling. But he wouldn't have thrown it. But it gave her a chance to talk with him, to make a real-world application to a true story. And she told him, Jacob, you can be a real-life David, trusting God to help you overcome the giants in your life. Well, the blank look on his face said everything. So she just said, "One day you'll understand," and she left it at that. But just to be safe, later that night, she did go through the house and removed anything that looked like it could be sling-making material. Remember the time I decided to tell the kids a ghost story. And so in front of the mirror, I practiced my most serious, somber, spooky storytelling facial expression. When I was satisfied I had that down, I turned the light off, put the flashlight under my chin, and tried it with the total ambiance. I had to get it just right. Once I was satisfied, I set up a white sheet. I got an empty soda pop bottle, put some BBs in it that could shake for a noisemaker. And to top it all off, I hid Simba the cat under a laundry basket that I was going to release at the climax of the story. All this was perfectly staged in our laundry room. So the kids are set, the lights are off, the flashlight's on, I'm deadpan serious, I'm off. And I'm just about to reach the point of the story where I'm going to release the cat, shake the noisemaker, when my wife barges into the laundry room from the outside door. I had, of course, failed to tell her about my little theatrical production. So she barges in, her arms full of work papers in one hand, her laptop in the other, completely oblivious of the fact that we're having this little production going on here, and proceeds to trip over my white sheet, sending papers into the air like little snowflakes, or big snowflakes. The laptop skids across the floor the other direction, and she begins to fall towards the kids' laps. She starts screaming. They start screaming. As she's falling, she kicks my noisemaker, tripping over the laundry basket, sending the cat in a perfect swan dive into the kid's lap. The cat is yowling and screaming and scratching. The kids are screaming. Papers are falling. It is utter chaos. I haven't changed. After a few moments, when the dust settles, the kids look a little shell-shocked. My wife looks a little shell-shocked. She just looks at the kids, looks at me, looks back at the kids, and says, ta-da! Needless to say, we had a pretty good laugh over that one. And then was the year that our church decided to do a yard sale. We were supposed to gather some gently used items. I don't know about you. I don't own gently used items. All of my items are pretty harshly used. But Shelby was doing her part. She was gathering up some things, making a pile that we could donate to the church. As she's gathering stuff, she finds an old t-shirt that belonged to our daughter, Allison. It was probably her favorite t-shirt. I think she wore the thing to school every single day for what felt like a year. And Shelby decided, you know what? It's time. And so she's just throwing it onto the pile to donate when Allison walks in the room. You would have thought we were trying to get rid of her prom dress. Words were exchanged. An argument ensued. Angers flared. And Shelby made one of those speeches that you instantly and eternally regret, that you can never take back. Allison fled the room in tears. And Shelby knew immediately that she needed to go make it right. And so she found Allison in her bedroom, on her bed, curled up in a fetal position, crying as only a teenager in pain can do. She let her cry for a few moments, and then she sat on the edge of the bed, and she pulled her close, and she apologized. Shelby had realized that her Christ-like example, her Christian testimony, had been forever broken and tarnished through her sinful response. Or so she thought. Allison wiped the tears from her eyes. She sat up and she looked at her mom and said, "Thank you, Mom. I know that was hard, apologizing. But it's what you've always taught us to do. And it was really nice to see." In case you're wondering, church made $5 off that shirt. And then there's this. I remember Jacob made this in Sunday school on Easter Sunday when he was really little, a long time ago. If you look real closely, there's 2 words on it, Jesus lives. Honestly, when he brought it home, I thought it said Jesus liver. His crayon work needed a little help back then. But he was so excited to show it off that as an excitement, he dropped it and broke it. Shelby, of course, did the quick mom to the rescue thing. She gathered up the pieces, found some glitter and some glue, and she glued it back together again. But Jacob was so excited that his mother had fixed it for him that he threw his arms around her neck in the biggest bear hug, and he held on for like ever. Anyway, Jacob was Zooming with Shelby recently. Jacob and his wife had moved out of the area with their kids. Our grandkids, I might add, but we're not bitter. But he was telling her that the oldest broke his hand playing dodgeball. The 2 younger were down with the flu, and his wife was once again looking for work, having been laid off. His job, he said, was just plain exhausting him. Shelby told me she could see it written all over his features, so she did the obligatory mom thing. She listened, gave some advice. Listened some more, gave some more advice. You know the drill. But seemingly out of the blue, Jacob says, "Mom, do you still have this?" Apparently his kids had made something similar in Sunday school, and it made him think about the one that he had had. And then he said, "Do you remember telling me about the giants of life, trusting Jesus?" And it took Shelby a minute, but then she finally connected. the smooth stone, David and Goliath. And so she said, yes, I remember. And he said, you know, Mom, the giants of life have gotten pretty big lately. And it's safe to say I was not handling it well. It got really bad the other night. God just seemed vanquished. That was the word he used, vanquished. But then I saw one of those crosses that the kids had made on the refrigerator door. And in that moment, Mom, your words came back to me. Your words telling me to trust Jesus in everything, including the brokenness. Broken made new, just trust. It really helped, Mom, he said. And I'm in a better place because of it. In fact, I continue to realize that I'm in a better place because of you. Thank you for fixing and comforting and believing and showing me just how big God really is. Well, it was getting late and Jacob had to go, so she thanked him. They did the virtual hug thing and Jacob signed off. Shelby, however, sat there for a while. In fact, she was still sitting there in the dark, I might add, when I got home from my meeting. And as she relayed the conversation to me, as she shared what Jacob said, I marveled at the reality that the objects of our life can tell a story. And I was profoundly struck that the mom's influence extends well beyond their childhood years into adulthood. And so moms, I want you to look around you for a moment. I want you to realize that your life is leaving a legacy of love and influence. Take a minute and just ponder what objects might represent that legacy. But more importantly, commit every day to living a life that leaves a new and lasting legacy that shows the greatness of God in all things. Because moms, your life of obedience to God does make a difference.